How you doing? My name's John Anderson. I'm a partner here at Byrne Insurance Group, and I spend most of my time working on the commercial insurance side of the business. And so I'm going to spend some time today talking with you about how COVID-19 and this pandemic is affecting our customers, how it's affecting people's insurance coverage, and some ways potentially reduce costs, as I know that's a big issue for many of our business customers right now. I will say I'm looking at myself in this picture, and in case you're wondering, this is a quarantine cut, and I just realized how ridiculous it looks. So that's probably another secondary reason we need to be flattening this curve is bad hair decisions. We need to get our salons and barbers back in business as soon as possible. So anyway, on that note, I just want to get started and kind of run through some topical information. I know these are questions that a lot of you all have. We've been hearing them from a lot of our customers. So the biggest one, and probably starting back in mid-March or really even early March, this was by far the biggest question I got on a daily basis. Business owners wanted to know how their insurance policies would respond to this crisis. And you know, it is true, most business owners are familiar with the fact that most of them, not all, but have business interruption coverage. And so a lot of the questions we got was how would business interruption coverage respond to this crisis? And unfortunately, in pretty much any case, the answer to that is it's probably not going to respond, at least if we look at the policy language. So as I mentioned, many of our customers, if not most, do have business interruption coverage on their policies. But just to be clear, business interruption, also known as business income, it's actually a property coverage. So it's on your property policy. And when you get into the coverage triggers, what triggers business interruption coverage is a direct physical loss to your property. So when we see these claims, it's because there's been a direct physical loss. Typically that's a fire, it could be a windstorm, a tornado, but it's something that actually does damage to your property, which doesn't allow you to continue your business. And so it would kick in the event of a fire, and pay for that lost income while you know, things were being rebuilt. So unfortunately, the virus is not going to most likely be considered a direct physical loss. So right there, it's not going to trigger coverage. But then even beyond that, further back in the policy, you get to the exclusions. And just about any policy you look at, a standard policy, there's a very, or it's very clear, there's an exclusion for viruses. So on top of this not being a direct physical loss, there's also an exclusion for viruses in the policy forms. And therefore, it's just not likely that coverage for the business interruption is going to be triggered or picked up by, you know, any of the carriers. So that being said, you know, we are not the insurance company. This is just our interpretation. In any instance, we're happy to turn this claim into the carriers, let the adjusters sort through that and make the final determination, because they always do have the final say. It's not up to us. If it were up to us, we'd love to pay these claims, but it's just not in the contract as they're written today. And so that's not to say in the future there won't be changes, just like there were changes after 9/11 with terrorism insurance. I would expect, we'll see changes down the road as far as pandemics go. The other coverage, issue that could potentially be brought up is on the workers' comp side. Again, I think it's unlikely that many work comp claims will be paid on this, mostly because it's got to be pretty clear, or it's probably got to be proven that employee got the virus while at work. So again, kind of like with the flu or whatever, it's you don't know exactly where you got it, most likely. I think there might be exceptions. If you were an employee in that nursing home in Washington State in the very beginning of this crisis, you might have a pretty good argument that you got that disease at work. So there might be exceptions, but I think in general, we're not going to see a whole lot of work comp claims come out of this as well. Now, I will say, this is, again, the policy language. There's plenty of articles out there interpreting that language by the Big I and other sources as well. But what has changed, especially it seems like in the last week or so, there is, some political pressure on insurance companies to pay these claims. And we've seen some states, New Jersey, Ohio, and some others, they're kicking around passing legislation to force insurers to pay business interruption claims. And then even last Friday, I think it was, during his daily task force briefing, the president even mentioned, business interruption coverage. And so, I potentially could foresee, further pressure on these carriers to pay those claims. I still find it, I wouldn't be optimistic that that's going to happen. But, we're watching that literally every day. It's changing. We're reading up on it every day. So I think that's a long shot, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And we certainly are. But as of today, and as the policy language seems to read, it just doesn't seem likely that most commercial policies are going to respond, unfortunately, to this virus. So, that being said, what is the insurance industry doing, in light of all that's going on? And honestly, they are attempting to help as much as they can. We've had a lot of conversations with customers about their payments. So we have a lot of customers, in service industries that are being shut down. How are they going to make these payments for the next couple months when they have no revenue coming in? And the carriers have responded to that to try to assist. A couple of different ways they're doing that. A lot of them are deferring payments. So they may give you an extra 30 days till your next payment's due. Some carriers are pushing the entire payment schedule back a month or two, but others, you may have to catch up your payments as soon as that date's up. So it's not necessarily that you don't have to pay that premium. It's just you have some more time to do so. Other carriers are also, for example, several of our carriers have said they're just not going to issue any cancellation notices until a certain date. I've seen mid-May and late May seem to be pretty standard. So all that means is even if you don't make your payments, between now and whatever date they say, they're not going to cancel your coverage. So that's buying some more time on a lot of these policies. But again, whatever date that is, if it's May 15th or June 1st or whatever, your payments do have to be made by then, or potentially those cancellation notices will go out. So it's more of a, the carriers are trying to work on the billing side to ease it for the next couple months till hopefully this opens back up. And then I think it's gotten a lot of press. A lot of people have probably seen where the carriers are offering discounts, or I should say refunds, is really what it is. So a lot of the carriers, and right now we've only seen it on the personal auto side, not on the business side, but a lot of carriers, obviously, if anybody is out driving, you'll notice that, there's not a lot of traffic on the roads, significantly less. And so with that, obviously, there's significantly less auto accidents. And so that's really, the carriers are not paying claims out right now like they normally would. And so they've kind of come out, and pretty much every carrier that we represent, so I'm guessing most every carrier's now kind of joined in, but they're given some refunds on, right now it's probably March and April premiums. We've seen mostly in the 15, and I've seen as high as 25% of premium being refunded, but just for those months. So it's not your full year premium that's getting refunded. It's just 15 to 25% of your monthly premium right now for March and April is what we're seeing. That could extend into May. Hopefully not. Hopefully things start turning around. But that's something that the carriers are doing to try to ease the burden a little bit and get some of more of that money back to the customers. But as I mentioned, that's, again, more of a personal auto thing that we're seeing. I haven't seen that on the business side yet. So the question is, how do businesses reduce their costs to try to weather the storm? And so we've got some ideas on that. So, most business liability and most business workers' comp, I should say all workers' comp, is rated on either sales or payroll. And so obviously if a business is shut down or a business has laid off a significant amount of employees, or whatever it is, you have less, you're not hiring, but your payroll's down. And then obviously, if you're completely shut down, your sales are next to nothing. But even if you're a restaurant doing carry out only, obviously your sales are probably gonna be down significantly. So, one way or to lower your cost for your business insurance is to revisit those sales and payroll estimates that were set up at the beginning of whatever the policy year we're in right now. So, at the beginning of this year, you thought your sales were going to be $1 million. Now we know they're going to be down for a couple months, and so you estimate your sales are only going to be $800,000 for the year. So we can go back to the carrier, get that estimate reduced down, and then accordingly your premium will come down. So that's one way on the liability policy to do that with the sales, especially for a restaurant, for a salon, but really anybody that would be shut down right now. And then, like I mentioned on the work comp, that's all payroll based. So your premium is just a product of the rate times the payroll, and then there's some other factors in there. But the payroll is the biggest driver of that. So if your payroll is down significantly, we can go to the work comp carrier and ask for an adjustment on that estimate as well, and get that premium back to you now, as opposed to after the policy year. If they audit that and give you a return premium, why not just go ahead and get that now to try to help with this crunch we're in. So that's just some ideas, for the businesses. I think that's probably the best way to adjust. Obviously there's equipment and autos if they're not being used, but I'd be hesitant to remove any coverage there. Let's just hope that, we continue flattening the curve. I try to be optimistic. I think hopefully we're heading in the right direction, and it's probably going to be a slow grind getting back to work, but hopefully that starts, fairly soon once it's safe. So that's kind of how, we've seen so far on the commercial insurance side, how it's being affected by the pandemic, how the carriers are responding. Again, unfortunately, they're most likely, at least as policy forms read now, there most likely probably won't be coverage for this pandemic. But that being said, the carriers are working with us and the customer base to try to ease the burden as best we can. So customers, even if you're not customers, anybody that has questions, my information's right here. Feel free to shoot me emails, call my extension. I'm happy to give any feedback or ideas that I can to help. And hopefully, we'll get through this together, and everybody will be back to business as usual as soon as possible. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to talking with you all soon.